Jonathan King has appeared in court, charged with 18 sexual offences relating to 9 boys aged 14 to 16. The 72-year-old DJ is accused of carrying out the offences between 1970 and 1986. Let's go to our correspondent, Lisa Hampley. She was at the hearing and is now outside Westminster Magistrates Court. Lisa, tell us what happened.
Well, Mr. King appeared here under the name Kenneth King, wearing a black suit, a white shirt and a blue tie. He stood in the dock to confirm his name, his age, he's 72, and that he lives in Bayswater in West London. He's charged with 18 sexual offences relating to boys, 9 boys, aged between 14 and 16. Three are serious sexual assaults and the others are indecent assaults. He's accused of carrying them out between 1970 and 1986 in Wharton-on-Thames. And he nodded and smiled as he was bailed to appear before Southwark Crown Court on July the 24th. And afterwards he posed for photographers, smiling and making the thumbs up sign.
Thank you very much, Lisa. We're getting some comments through from Theresa May and Arlene Foster on that deal between the Tory party and the DUP in terms of having a workable government. We're expecting the DUP representatives there, Arlene Foster and others, to come out shortly. We saw the pictures of the signing of the deal inside Downing Street. We're expecting them to come out and speak to the media. But inside, Arlene Foster has said, we're delighted that we have reached this agreement, which I think works, obviously, for national stability. In terms of the Northern Ireland Executive, of course, we're determined to see it back in place as soon as possible as well, because we believe we need a strong voice for Northern Ireland when dealing not least with the Brexit issue. And also speaking inside Number 10, Theresa May has said, as we set out at the beginning of the talks, we share many values in terms of wanting to see prosperity across the UK, the value of the Union, the important bond between the different parts of the United Kingdom. We very much want to see that protected and enhanced, and we also share the desire to ensure a strong government able to put through its programme and provide for issues like Brexit negotiations, but also national security issues. So the agreement we have come to is a very, very good one, and we look forward to working with you. The Prime Minister's spokesman has said that all relevant documents from any deal with the DUP will be published as soon as possible. Chris Mason is in Downing Street, where all eyes and cameras are focused on the door as we wait for any movement there. But Chris, we're hoping someone is going to emerge shortly to give us a bit more detail.
Yes, you and me both on that. Yeah, the microphones are set up, so there's 3 of those fluffy microphones set up just outside the door. Some of the delegation travelling with the leader of the DUP, Arlene Foster, have already come out of the building. So any moment now, which is always a dangerous phrase for a reporter reporting live to use, they will appear. The door opens. Let's see what happens. Here comes Arlene Foster. Let's see what she has to say.
So good morning. Following the general election results and the mandate given to us by the people of Northern Ireland, we have been in discussions with the Conservative and Unionist Party as to how we can support the minority Conservative government in Parliament. Today, we have reached an agreement with the Conservative Party on support for government in Parliament. This agreement will operate to deliver a stable government in the United Kingdom's national interest at this vital time. Throughout these discussions, our guiding principle has been our commitment to acting in the national interest in accordance with our shared objectives for strengthening and enhancing our precious union. In concluding this wide-ranging agreement, we have done so on the basis of advancing the security of our nation, building prosperity for all, and supporting an exit from the European Union that benefits all parts of the United Kingdom. The details of our agreement and future working arrangements will be published in full. As part of our policy agreement, both parties have agreed that there will be no change to the pensions triple lock and the universal nature of the winter fuel payment across the United Kingdom. We are agreed to meet the NATO commitment of spending 2% of GDP on the armed forces, and we are further committed to the Armed Forces Covenant and to its implementation throughout the United Kingdom. Following our discussions, the Conservative Party has recognised the case for higher funding in Northern Ireland, given our unique history and indeed circumstances over recent decades. The UK Government will publish, as an annex to our agreement, the details of financial support that will be made available to Northern Ireland. Our aim in these negotiations has been to deliver for all of the people of Northern Ireland, and the support measures which we are announcing will be to the benefit of all our people. They will boost the economy and invest in new infrastructure, as well as investing in the future of our health and education sectors and a range of other measures. We welcome this financial support of £1 billion in the next 2 years, as well as providing new flexibilities on almost £500 million previously committed to Northern Ireland. As a consequence, spending power of almost £1.5 billion will be available to address the unique circumstances of Northern Ireland and the effect these have had on the economy and its people. In furtherance of our overall agreement, the Government and the Democratic Unionist Party have established a coordination committee. This agreement will remain in place for the length of the Parliament, and after each parliamentary session, both parties will review the aims, principles and implementation of the agreement. I want to personally thank the Prime Minister and her negotiating team for the spirit in which these discussions have been conducted. I particularly want to acknowledge and pay tribute to the two men standing beside me, the Right Honourable Nigel Dodds and the Right Honourable Sir Geoffrey Donaldson MP, for their efforts. I want to thank other party colleagues and indeed our parliamentary party who will be to the fore in working these new arrangements. Today we have reached an outcome that is good for the United Kingdom, good for Northern Ireland, and allows our nation to move forward to tackle the challenges ahead. This afternoon I will be returning to Northern Ireland to continue our discussions as we attempt to re-establish the Northern Ireland Executive, because now, more than ever, our political leaders, both locally and nationally, need to work together to find solutions for all of the people we serve. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, there they go, the leaders of the Democratic Unionist Party not taking questions, having finished and concluded a deal with the Conservative Party. They return to their cars. This is the statement we got from Arlene Foster in the last couple of minutes, just to pull out some of the key elements from that. Very interesting, wasn't it, at the start that she referred to the Conservatives by their full title, the Conservative and Unionist Party. Clearly the maintenance of the Union of Northern Ireland as part of the United Kingdom, absolutely central to the DNA of the Democratic Unionist Party. A couple of things in terms of our discussion earlier, Joanna, about policies that the Conservatives were keen on that have been changed as a result of this deal. So we now know that there will be no change to the pensions triple lock, that the idea that the state pension will rise by the greatest amount of either 2.5% earnings or inflation, the universal winter fuel allowance remaining in place, and the Conservatives and the DUP agreeing that the government will continue to give 2% of national income to the armed forces. And then on that crucial issue of money, which is going to be a massively contentious, I suspect, political element of this deal, confirmation that there would be money for Northern Ireland, that the DUP would be spent on boosting the economy, infrastructure, education and health, amounting to £1.5 billion. £1 billion over the next 2 years, plus what was described as an additional £500 500 million of money that will have now new flexibilities, which suggests a greater degree of local autonomy about how that money is spent. So those are the details of this confidence and supply arrangements between the Democratic Unionists and the Conservatives. The Conservatives able to now say that they're no longer in minority government, but with the help of the Democratic Unionists, they can govern with a majority, albeit a small one.
The choreography is quite interesting, isn't it, Chris, in that the DUP came out and spoke alone, and obviously we've yet to hear publicly from the Prime Minister on this.
Yeah, so what we didn't have was a formal news conference with all of us lot invited into the garden, as happened 7 years ago with the Liberal Democrats. We didn't have two podiums, did we, with both leaders standing next to each other and sounding chummy and friendly and all the rest of it. Instead, the delegation from the DUP departing themselves, able to issue their own statement and make their own pitch, if you like, first. And we expect we'll hear from Damien Green, the first Secretary of State, pretty shortly. And of course, there'll be lots of questions coming in the direction of the Prime Minister as and when she is next in front of the cameras. But I think in terms of choreography, in terms of what we've just seen here in the street, that in visual terms, a recognition of how different this arrangement is from the one that we got used to 7 years ago between the Conservatives and the Lib Dems.
Thanks very much, Chris. The document has actually just been put up online already by the government. So there you go. That is the deal, the agreement between the Conservative and Unionist Party and the Democratic Unionist Party on support for the government in Parliament. That's the front page. Don't know how long the whole document is actually, but anyway, it is there online. It's just 3 pages, so it's quite a tight document. But the key aspects of it, there you go, you see the signatures there of the chief whips of the Conservative Party and the DUP. We saw them signing those documents just a short while ago. So with the bones of the agreement are that Northern Ireland effectively has an extra £1.5 billion of spending. I mean, it's not the 1 billion of that is an extra amount of money over 2 years, but they've got £1.5 billion, the DUP was saying there, of greater spending power, because as part of the agreement, £500 million that had previously been allocated will now have greater flexibility around how that is spent. And also, as we were hearing, the pensions triple lock does not go. It stays, as does the universal winter fuel payment. So, Chris, I mean, the business of government gets on, and just because this deal, which was hard to do, has happened, it doesn't mean life is going to be easy or straightforward.
It doesn't. I'm just going to pull out one additional line, Joanna, from that statement we heard from Arlene Foster a couple of minutes ago, in addition to the details about money and then the promises that the two parties are willing to sign up to between the two of them. Interesting, another additional line here, which sounds quite technical but could prove absolutely crucial. This agreement, it says, will remain in place for the length of the Parliament, as you would expect, and after each parliamentary session, both parties will review the aims, principles and implementation of the agreement. Well, we heard last week with the Queen's speech that the Conservatives' aim is that this current parliamentary session will last for 2 years. In other words, in 2 years' time, the Democratic Unionists could come back if there hasn't been a general election between now and then, and say, well, hang on a minute, you know, we got £1.5 billion last time out. What can we arrange now? In other words, there is still room for negotiation within this Parliament before the next general election, potentially, between the Conservatives and the Democratic Unionists. Just hearing from the Prime Minister, a statement from the Prime Minister just being published on the Conservative Party website, saying, and I'm scrolling down this as I talk to you, I welcome this agreement, which will enable us to work together in the interests of the whole United Kingdom, giving us the certainty we require as we embark on departure from the European Union, and help us to build a stronger and fairer society at home. And then some further detail further down that statement, which plays right into the nature of the arrangement that the Conservatives now have with the DUP, that there is the huge issue back in Northern Ireland of re-securing power-sharing government there, where of course the DUP themselves are absolutely central players.
Thank you very much, Chris. Much more analysis and coverage of that still ahead, of course. And in a moment, we'll have a summary of the business news at this hour. But let's update you right now on our headlines on BBC Newsroom Live. As we've just been hearing, the Democratic Unionist Party has signed a deal to support Theresa May's minority government. The government says it will offer support to councils after cladding on 60 high-rise buildings across England failed fire safety tests. And the Prime Minister will set out more details this afternoon of how the government plans to treat more than 3 million EU citizens living in the UK after Brexit.